Hey guys, it's Heinkel. Welcome back to Füssen here in southern Germany. And Captain Sim's surprise delivery of the Heinkel 111. Now I know what you're going to say, Captain Sim. Yes. I quite liked the Spad. I'm going to be honest. The Spad was kind of fun. It was a decent aircraft. They've had a history in 2020 that's not been so wonderful, and one before that has not been so wonderful. But I will always take every opportunity to look at everything with a fresh set of eyes and give you a fresh opinion. Now, the Heinkel 111, German airliner, this was totally designed to be an airliner that totally wasn't designed to have other purposes. Later on, in the medium bomber, designed by Siegfried and Walter Gunther at the Heinkel Flugzeugwerk in 1934. Now, this was developed as a wolf in sheep's clothing, like I said. It was totally not to dodge restrictions. Yes, it was. Absolutely was. And it was going to provide the intention was to provide the nascent Luftwaffe with a heavy bomber. It didn't. The nose was very underarmed for what it had, under-armoured, small bomb load. They were the mainstay for the Battle of Britain, and many of them got disassembled quite rapidly over English shores. And they were good in the Battle of France when they had air superiority. Without air superiority, they were a little bit wimpy. But either way, obviously, initial versions saw action from the 32 prototypes. We had 12 civilian airliners, 800 pre-war, and 5,600 during the war, for a total of 6,500 airframes. They retired in 1945 with the Luftwaffe, obviously, as did the Luftwaffe, in that form. And in 1958 was Spain, which was the Casa 111. It was the license-built one. In fact, if you watched the Battle of Britain film, you saw Spanish Casa 111s flying. You'll know because the engine shape is different. Fun fact. So the 111H model, which we have here, it had a pair of Junkers Umo 211 F1 engines, or the F2 engines, with V12, those being V12 liquid-cooled pistons, putting out 1,300 horsepower apiece. She could manage about a max of 240 knots and a range of around 1,200 nautical miles, or in period correct numbers, 440 kilometers an hour and 2,300 kilometers. So pretty good. Service ceiling was 21,000 feet, or 6,500 meters, and she could carry a payload, if we look at that, of 2,000 kilos or 4,500 pounds of bomb, which is actually not bad when you think that everyone's favourite sign of squawking eagles and freedom, the B-17, on a long-range mission can only carry 4,500 pounds of bombs, which, for that, by the way, we're talking 800 miles. So given that the 111, could manage similar, that's not that impressive for the B-17, because this thing could manage 1,200 nautical miles. So it's going to be one of those things you have to really consider. It can also carry external pit stock, and of course the bombs in this one were unique because they were held vertically inside the bomb bays. I'll show you that in a minute. But it obviously could carry external racks, could be bigger things, torpedoes and other things like that. Okay, the aircraft itself, it comes with a couple of liveries. The pictures for them are crap. But here's the kicker. The stock aircraft you buy from Captain Sim costs you the princely sum of about $17. If you want the liveries, and more than one, and more than just the German one, you need to pay for a livery pack for $5. Not the end of the world, but let's just say with livery pack this costs $24. That aside, what are our features? An exterior model with high definition 8K textures, G1 Echo Hotel livery, toggleable immersion options including chocks, tie-downs, deployable antenna, weaponry and cargo boxes and tools. The cockpit has an authentic instrument layout. Okay. High-res textures, okay, again, clipboard options, custom views. We have a custom autopilot in this with fuel system, including its transfer systems. We have a fitting flight model, apparently. User manual, available from their website. A repaint kit, useful, thank you. Support for rain and icing. And apparently more livery packs coming. And more available for add-ons for free. This is for 2020 only right now, but it will probably work in 2024, as most things tend to do. It'll be a port, though. Let's go take a look at the airplane itself and see what we're dealing with here. So, I'm going to open the bomb bay just to kind of start this out properly. In fact, we'll put out a bunch of features. Now, you'll notice your little clipboard is around the back here. You can pull it round so you can see it. There's no actual view for it I can find. Put the ladder on. Put the weaponry on. Tie downs, tire chocks, cargo, and pitot covers. Let's go outside, shall we? Now, it is a very nicely textured aeroplane. The modelling detail is fantastic. It is very sharp. Those panel lines look like you could run a Bolivian bugger sugar dealer through them. They are massive. In fact, it looks like you could actually fit the entirety of the 1st Panzer Division along those panel lines. They're quite large. Detailing is actually pretty good. Like, it actually has the flathead rivets visible. It's got the good writing on it. Don't stand there. Only stand there. Usual things that you would write on an airplane's wing. Oh god, I've not seen Ava Angel in an airplane for a while. God, she's still ugly. What a surprise. There's the big Jumos with their... or Umos with their very oily surface. These things look filthy. They put out a lot of smoke. So we have our very English removable flight tags, which is an oversight given that you've got German markings on the wings and warnings on the aircraft, but you have removed before flight in English on the pitot flag. Womp womp. Notably, missing thing on tail. The Angie cross is not there, or the Angie windmill is not present. Now, of course, someone inevitably does in every single video I have ever posted featuring a Luftwaffe aircraft operating between 1939 and 1945. Someone goes, "But Ranger, where's my accuracy?" I don't care. I'm a Jew. Pretty happy not seeing that. Cope. Moving on. Exterior model is good. I like it. The weathering and detail is really nice. It's a pretty good job. Considering that, you know, we've been paying similar prices for Batavia stuff recently, and to be fair, until now, the only Heinkel 111 we had that was actually any good, well, at all, was Batavia's in FSX. So this has got a very low bar to leap over, which was saying a lot. Here's the bomb bay. See, so I mean, they are vertical slots. The bombs were in, tail fins up, which I must say is probably a bad idea. If you're putting those in there and you're positioning them in place, you're taking fuses out, or safety pins out, sorry, you're having them just hold it in vertical so it just accidentally slips out and goes plonk, kaboom. Problem is, by the way, things like the cupola down here, not cupola, sorry, the wrong word, the bathtub it had for its bottom gunner, ventral gunner, is just not textured. There's nothing really in the back here at all. You've got a thin space behind each of these areas where the windows are, nothing else in there. Top again is just empty, no crew figures beyond your pilot, which is unfortunate. Let's go inside. Now inside's pretty good looking, as we mentioned. There's some flickery shadows, but that's sometimes a 2020 issue. I'll forgive that. We'll leave the weaponry turned on there. Let's go put those away. So here we have the cockpit. Now we can adjust the height of the yoke manually. Pretty useful for the actual real aircraft, and neat here because it lets you see something and your controls without it being in the way. Engine controls down here. We have windows. They don't affect the sound. We have sun visors over everything, so if we are in a really sunny place, we can open and close them. Hatches, you will need to open latches or the locks and then open the windows. Same with this one. And we have a curtain we can put down over that too, in case you get a little bashful and want to change in your Heinkel. Close that over. Fuel tanks up here, so we can see our fuel tank capacities, or how full they are, I should say, up there. Close the roof latch. Close that up. Engine instruments here. So we have fuel flow, we have our manifold here, yada yada, other instruments are all around there, everything in the manual. Oxygen valve there, oxygen system is our settings for it, of course. Very useful. I'm assuming those are for flares, there's nothing in there right now. So our compass, it gives our heading currently. You can't position it anywhere, like you could really fold it down in the aircraft, so it'd be nice to be able to do that. Can't do this one. The seat here, you have to kind of hold it till it goes into position, or it sometimes goes back up again. See, it goes up that way. You just click it to hold it down. Yeah, like if I like, you have to pull it. But there's our jump seat. Down here we have our water radiators for injection, and we have our hand pump for hydraulics, and more pumps down there. Nice and simple. So let's start her up, shall we? It's a fairly simple process. First off, we're going to be putting our power to on. Now I turn my mags to both of my hardware controls and nothing happens. What I will need to do though is put my props up there, move my throttles out of the way, and I will manually put both magnetos up to both M1 plus 2. Now we're going to move the primer pumps up, fuel pumps up to 1 plus 2 on there. As you'll see down here, P1, P2, and we have P1 and 2. These are our oil coolers. Down here are our fuel transfer selectors, and we have the actual transfer pump to move it between tanks. Landing gear there. Flap lever is here. This is you knock it forward and back like a toggle. And I'm giving credit that the spring actually functions, but obviously this will maneuver our flaps lever there. Now watch this. If I toggle it on hardware, it works and the actual flaps go down, but nothing moves. So if I hit it with F7 to actually manually do it in the sim, it does it, but again, the lever doesn't move. So that lever's not connected to the rest of the system. Up there, these get in the way quite a bit visually. Dome lights, pitot covers, or pitot heat, sorry. Exterior lighting, and landing lights. So a bunch of those features there. And cool feature here, altimeter, low level altimeter. Possibly radar altimeter. But this should give us our distance above the ground on landing. Autopilot functionality is basically a position hold, a heading hold, an altitude hold. And this basically would select our heading. We can also do it from here. And select it through. And that is our engage on top. And that basically holds your current altitude and current heading. Basically, you want to position yourself. Once you've set the heading you want to hold, you can track it with this as the positioning. And you can then track it to position, go on target, basically aim the direction you need to go, and the attitude and altitude, engage the autopilot, and it will hold that. Rudimentary. Now there's a lever here. This allows this piece to fold. Why? Well, this is kind of in the way, visually. So you can actually move this lever to here. You could fold this part of the actual panel out of sight for landing. Very useful, but unfortunately not animated in this aircraft, so not very able to do. Now this is all started up. We have to move ourselves to the side here so I can actually reach the starters. But it's such a pain to get into that and actually reach its position. A little bit of starting smoke, but nothing unusual. Prop blur is actually reasonably decent, I'll give it that. And I will say the lighting on the body looks rather nice. It is quite pretty. Okay, let's give her a bit of a spin, shall we? So parking brakes released. Advance my throttles. And we'll make sure we are only on 1 notch flaps for takeoff. Now watch this, if you think this is fun. Big aircraft with, you know, a lot of stuff behind the aircraft engines. Yes, I get the tail to pop up from a little bit of braking like that, which is dramatic for a medium bomber. It's a little light in the tail. You will easily tip this over on landing, that's for sure. As I said, the only real comparison we have for this is the Batavia of FSX P3D era, which wasn't great. It's visually not bad, and notice the window's open right now. No sound difference, which is disappointing. And these engines sound familiar, and they're not from Yonkazuma. I don't know what... Let me just run this up to power a second. They sound way too weedy. I don't want to say it's the Pratt & Whitney's off the DC-3 because it's not, because they sound richer than these. But this is not from Heinkel. The sounds are not right. But again, it's a prime example of how the exterior sounds are way better than the interior sounds. Again, with the release, where people have naffed up doing the interior sounds. It's like the interior loses all the bass. See what I mean about visibility from that panel? Yeah, it's a little bit on the annoying side as we drift across everything. I'm about to hit everything. Oh god, please don't die. Please don't die. That's my bad. There we go. Let's build some speed here. Slowly lift up because I have to get across these power lines. We're a little bit slow for this takeoff, but we're climbing now. Gear coming up. Flaps coming up as well. And there's a bomb bay, which you control with your spoilers lever. Which you're meant to be able to. Why aren't you closing? You have to cycle it sometimes, it's weird. Very dirty underside. Right, let's get this thing leveled out and give her a bit of a spin. Coming up fast about 150 kilometers an hour, so we're a bit on the low side still. We'll let that speed some speed for us. Pull the props back a touch. Yeah, that radar altimeter's not working at this altitude. It is an interesting aircraft to fly from this perspective of the visual you get from that, greenhouse cockpit. Can you imagine how terrible this was when you're getting shot at by fighters? And why the RAF loved to come at these things nose on and just above nose on? Angles where the single machine gun, the MG-34 in the nose, was really ineffective against a Spitfire. Or if you come at this from the side. That was another favourite, by the way. Because tell me how many guns are facing the side of this aircraft. Less than Hitler had gentleman berries. That number is 0. Yeah. This is next to no defensive armament at the side. Some of them, they had machine guns sticking out of the side windows in the back there, but that was later marks. And it was very much a desperation measure. So, handling-wise, is heavy. It does feel fairly lumpy. And it's got no systems depth to this whatsoever. It's got a couple of neat little kind of cool things to play with, but in general, you have an aircraft that has a heading hold and an altitude hold, which I'm going to put on now. Let's go down this to our current heading. Why are you plummeting to the ground? You're going to pick your pitch up at some point? Pulled it up myself. Yeah, so just motors along are basically what we have set. Okay, fair enough. It seems to get very quiet very quickly as well. Like, especially in the interior. Much quieter than it should. Such is blasting away. Yeah, lack of sound from the windows. The sound's been weedy. I don't like those. Interesting that some of these animations can sometimes get stuck, especially when you're looking around. So if I'm in the mouse view there, moving around, I'm moving my yoke right now. And it just locks my controls up. But that could be a Microsoft thing. It's not... It's 3.6 Rotkin. It's not great, it's not terrible. For 20... I don't like the fact you have to pay for the livery pack. That is cheesy. Include the liveries with the aeroplane. It's 6 liveries total. And you're going to charge people $5 for that, on top of the basic aircraft. That is an EA level of move. I hate to say this, but the SPAD had multiple liveries. Why are you pulling an EA and DLCing your liveries? That is a bit much, if I'm honest. We're going to line up for a reproach back here into Fissen. Neuschwanstein Castle over there. I love seeing that one whenever we visit this area. Okay, gear going down. Flaps to 30 degrees. Runway is in sight. Okay. Now, give it a bunch of trim down here. I will say textures are pretty good, but it's generally... I don't like the pricing on the liveries. It is incredibly rudimentary as an aircraft. And given what we can get for that $20 mark these days, it feels a little on the cheesy side to be asking that much for a very limited experience. Given that this is the only 111 we've realistically had of any substance, to kind of go half-assed and kind of just knock this out as a quickie feels like a cash sprint. It feels like this has been a model that's been found on TurboSquid, that has been brought to life in Flight Sim as quickly as possible, textures, model stuff thrown together, and put out with a reasonable flight model that feels too light to the tail, because this shouldn't get its tail up that easily. It gets quite nose droopy when it's low on throttle, by the way, as well. Still remind me about that panel and the ability to fold. That would have been quite nice, because that opens up so much more visibility for you. To the side there. I'm just moving my head to one side manually for this purpose. But now it sounds like the window's open, even though it's not. A bit of sideways action. Oh, that's a terrible idea. Whoa, recovered that. Putting this into a slip at low speed was not a bright idea, because it just tried to murder me and my descendants. I'm not going to brake yet whilst it's still low. Got gentle braking now. All back pressure I could apply. Pulling the flaps up now. It's a bit rougher here, so I'm going to keep that tail where it is. Holding full back pressure. Gentle braking. See what I mean? Like, that's really easy to get its tail up. Watch this. That's very light. So the flight model's okay, but it's way too tail sensitive. And the functions are largely surface level or not that interesting. I mean, yes, it does work like the real thing technically works, but in no real depth. I feel like you could have added so many more cool historical features to this, or features that would allow you to basically have a level of historical immersion. There's no back end in this aircraft, just the cockpit area essentially. There's no payload options, so you can put the weapons, of course, on there for the machine guns, but you can't, for example, put bombs in the bomb bay, external racks on the aircraft, racks that went under the fuselage that blocked the bomb bay. It could carry bigger bombs like the 1,000-pounders, or it could carry torpedoes. So that's not available, unfortunately, which would be nice. But it's not bad. I want to like it more than I do, because it's actually not terrible. But it's very expensive, and the scummy pricing on the livery pack does bug me a great deal. That's a big no-no for me. So it's a bit of a toss-up. And whilst you can remove the weapons, you still get the actual, you know, weapon blisters on top and bottom, which does throw it off a bit if you're going to fly around in the Lufthansa version and pretend it's a passenger aircraft. So it's a bit of a kind of halfway house. You don't have a full-on passenger version with seats. You don't have a version that is the full-on bomber version with accommodations like that. It is a halfway house that's not bad, but not great. It could have been so much better, but it's been undermined, I think, by being a quick project. Also, dear God, you can fit the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Panzer Divisions down those panel lines. If this thing flew with panel lines that big, the amount of air it would catch, you could fit a Spitfire through. Which I guess they did when they were pulling them apart. And on that bombshell. Now, you see what I did there? Because it's a bomber. Do I think it's worth it? If you really want a Heinkel 111, sure. We've only had 2 options, really. Is it up to the standards of the Junkers 52 or the Condor? No, but we all know who made those, and he's great. This is an effort of some kind. Thanks for watching. Bye.